can now build cyber exploits in minutes or hours at a fraction of the cost of vulnerability discovery by trained humans. Once weaponized, these vulnerabilities endanger the security of our infrastructure and society. So we must be prepared for these new capabilities being available widely, including to malicious actors, especially as other capabilities in Bayer, for instance, are also growing. The Commission's response has been immediate. We engaged with the entire AI and cybersecurity ecosystem, with you, with member states, with our AI providers, with industry, and with our international partners. The action plan is not starting from scratch, as we know. The EU already has very robust legal and policy foundations. We are now turning them into action, capability and resilience along 3 priorities. So first, AI models with high cyber capabilities deployed in Europe must be safe, and our European players must have access to use them. The AI Act provides us the world's most advanced framework to protect us against risks of AI. And in less than 1 month, also our AI office will have the enforcement powers to ensure that providers, they also establish appropriate safeguards against misuse, including in the cyber domain. Assessing models before release is a cornerstone of risk mitigation. Europe must build excellence in this area. We will launch a call to step up Europe's evaluation capacity of AI models, including in cybersecurity, by 2027. The EU Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, will play an important role making this action plan operational. And together with ENISA, the Commission will also develop a European blueprint for structured access to advanced AI models, with focus on cybersecurity. We need common and clear and also transparent conditions for accessing these models, which also serves as a basis for cooperation and alignment with our international partners. And we must also strengthen our know-how on how to deploy these technologies for our cybersecurity. And this is why already by the end of this year, the Commission will set up also a secure platform to test how these models can be used safely for cybersecurity in critical sectors such as finance, energy, health, transport, or public administration. And second, we must protect ourselves against malicious attacks exploiting such models. Our immediate priority is now to identify and fix the most critical vulnerabilities faster. The first step is the full and effective implementation of our cybersecurity legislation, so the NIS2 directive, DORA, and the Cyber Resilience Act. Not tomorrow, now. And to fix these vulnerabilities where exposure is the highest for our critical infrastructure, which is open source software. So we will launch a critical open source resilience campaign. In parallel, we will support also our critical sectors and our SMEs in understanding and also deploying existing AI tools, including those openly available to enhance their cyber resilience. And third, we must build Europe's own AI-powered cyber capabilities. We cannot rely only on non-European solutions for capabilities that are becoming critical for our security. So Europe has everything what it takes to be competitive in this area. So we have talent, a solid cybersecurity and AI ecosystem, and with AI factories and in the future also AI gigafactories, we have also the infrastructure. But we must get serious about financing. Frontier AI requires very large-scale investment, as we know, far beyond what public funding alone can provide. We need to mobilize private capital, especially equity. The new European tech equity capacity announced in the tech sovereignty package can be a game changer here. Some will say that the cost of building European frontier capabilities is too high. In today's world, the cost of not building them will be even much higher, and it will grow every year. So our action plan now addresses the pressing challenges that frontier AI models present to cybersecurity, and we build capacities for a stronger Europe in this domain.
Thank you very much, Executive Vice President. Now for the European People's Party will speak Aura Sala. floor is yours.
Cybersecurity is a matter of national security. Yet, even here, Europe remains heavily dependent on US vendors for cloud security, threat intelligence, identity management, and endpoint protection. The same is true for AI. We must reduce the risk of supply chain attacks by expanding trusted partnership worldwide, while gradually building more of our own tech stack. Our dependency is not primarily about AI models, it is about the infrastructure they rely on. Europe has strong AI research, but too few companies operating at this frontier. That's why we must speed up EU-level regulatory sandboxes, market harmonization, and make sure our public sector chooses European tech first. Right now, Europe is rightly pushing for computing capacity. However, quantum and gigafactories don't help us if we don't have European businesses who use this capacity so that quantum can be commercialized. Investments in data centers and European cloud must go hand in hand with policies that help to create demand here at home. Data centers will not bring high-tech jobs to Europe. We also need to be realistic. We unfortunately cannot switch off from the US vendors anytime soon. Europe relies so heavily on US cloud software and hardware solutions that we will shoot ourselves into the foot if we speed up without extended supply chains and domestic solutions. The answer is not for more regulation. It is smarter enforcement, strategic public procurement, and an industrial policy that strengthens security, supports emerging technologies, and reduces critical dependencies. A shift from digital regulation towards tech sovereignty doesn't happen overnight. It will require a tremendous focus on details and pushing for overall mind change. But the worst we can do now is to do nothing.
Thank you very much. For S&D Group will speak Alex Ajus-Salim.
Mr. President, the more we digitalize our own lives, the more society becomes vulnerable to cyber attacks. Where once hackers were just human, now we have different artificial models. We saw what Minostropic could do, and now we are seeing stronger AI machines. We cannot ignore this. We have problems, we can face problems in airports and in other important services such as hospitals. We have to strengthen ourselves and use the most proactive means of defending ourselves, while at the same time defending cybercrime. But we mustn't depend on we mustn't rest on technologies outside our shores. Thank you.
Děkuji za slovo, vážený pane předsedající, vážené kolegyně.
Thank you.
Zajistit bezpečnost našich obyvatel je jednou z největších priorit, ale zároveň výzev, které v Evropské unii.
It's very important we set out our priorities and meet all of these challenges when it comes to cybersecurity. It is very important. Artificial intelligence makes these attacks faster and more dangerous. So I very much welcome the Commission's action plan. Europe must be prepared to protect its citizens, its businesses, its interests. But if we look at all the regulations that have come out of Europe, what is the result? We have all of this legislation, regulation, and we just see companies that are moving their headquarters outside of the EU, and this is a problem. If the EU wants to be competitive in the area of artificial intelligence, we need to create the conditions for the technology to stay here so we're not dependent on technology from third countries. So question to the Commission, How will this action plan stop innovation from leaving the EU? We don't want better cybersecurity to simply become a greater administrative burden for our companies. We want to support technology companies. Otherwise, we'll never become independent. We'll simply use others' technology. How can you ensure that sensitive data really remains under our control? How will the Commission measure the success of this action plan? If we put these new rules in place, we need to be able to assess how this really impacts our security, but we also need to be able to support research and innovation. We need to be competitive. All of this goes in hand in hand.
What is yours?
Szanowni Państwo, ta debata nie jest
President, Commissioner, colleagues, this debate on cybersecurity and AI proves the EU's failure over the last 20, 30 years in this field. In the past, Europe was the continent where we had the most technological discoveries, which had the revolution, the Industrial Revolution. We pushed development throughout the whole world, but today, instead, we are a community which, with its taxes, pays bureaucrats and does not encourage innovation. We've become a second-class power, and we look at the developments in commuting elsewhere, which then has an impact on the economy, on society, on our lives, and we're sitting in the second class. Why? Because bureaucracy, over-regulation, a lack of innovation, all of that has meant we are second class. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner. I call on all business leaders in Europe to take good note of today's recommendations on AI and cybersecurity released by the European Commission and ENISA. It's not business as usual anymore. Your software and IT systems will be tested by hackers. Aided by the latest AI models, hackers will operate with the speed of light and will try to put you out of business. So today's recommendations will help you to defend with the speed of light and with the help of the best talent and the best capabilities Europe has to offer. I also remind business leaders that time is not in your advantage. You have a few months at best to fix vulnerabilities because AI models from China with similar capabilities will be on the market soon. You must adapt to stay in business. But I also want to encourage my colleagues here to think firmly about developing frontier AI models in Europe. Currently, there are some 3,000 models, AI models, large language models in the world. Only 30 of which are European, 0 are compliant with EU laws and regulations. So if we want sovereign European technology, we need to push for deregulation, indeed, with the speed of light. Thank you.
Thank you. For the Greens will speak Marketa Gregorova. Floor is yours.
Colleagues, Commissioner, for months, some of us have been warning that Europe was sleepwalking into a new dependency, and the restrictions on Mythos, Fable, and now GPT 5.6 prove the point better than any speech here. Everything here in this new action plan is guidelines, blueprints, and pilots. It's a necessary start to this problem, yes, but where is the joint procurement as a collective leverage? Where is the economic and diplomatic pressure to make sure Europe is not again cut off? Nothing binds the plan to CSA2, no appeal mechanism is proposed. I ask why? Most importantly, we need to focus on creating the industrial foundation for Europe to compete globally with our own cutting-edge models. That means sovereign compute, increase electricity output, and safeguarding and using our training data effectively. It also means promoting our global champions in critical components. If not in this action plan, where will we see such a pledge from the Commission? Thank you.
Thank you. For the left will speak João Oliveira. What is yours? Obrigado.
Thank you, President. Commissioner Vekunen. The discussion on cybersecurity and AI isn't just a discussion on our capacity to resist cyber attacks or to avoid damaging use of technology. It's primarily a debate on the rights of people to be involved in their development, on international cooperation, shared scientific knowledge, the possibility of ensuring cohesion by building on national symptoms and ensuring benefits for citizens, including control over their personal data. It's vital that we have a clear definition of the responsibilities of states in terms of control and enforcement of communication technology. Leaving these issues in the hand of major multinationals in these areas is not a solution. It's vital that we define national strategies for scientific and technological development, ensure that we have robust public systems, and that we have human resources as well as financial sources. And we need to ensure that ICT.
Thank you very much. Next speaker for Europe of Sovereign Nations will speak Rada Laikova.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, the Commission presented its action plan on cybersecurity and AI. It promises to make Europe a global leader in artificial intelligence. But leadership is not declared in a PR strategy. It is demonstrated when the technologies that matter are developed. And recently, the American company Anthropic presented Mythos, an AI model capable of identifying complex chains of software vulnerabilities at unprecedented speed. And access was restricted to a small group of trusted partners to strengthen cyber defense. And guess what? The European Union was not among these trusted partners. That should concern every member state, because cybersecurity is no longer just about writing standards, it is about who has access to cutting-edge AI. As the saying goes, America innovates and the EU regulates. For years, Europe has focused on regulation and keeps being the master regulator. The AI Act is one of the world's most comprehensive regulatory frameworks. And yet today, the most advanced cyber capabilities are emerging outside the EU. We regulate the technology while others build it. The EU supervises the market and others decide who gets access. So I ask the Commission, how does this action plan make Europe a leader in AI and cybersecurity and not just a regulator of technologies developed somewhere?
Thank you very much. So now we will ask to take floor for the Commission, Executive Vice President Virkkunen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members. Thank you very much for your interventions. As you very rightly highlighted here, two aspects are key today: how to ensure now access to these models and also how to build European sovereignty in this field. So first on access, we have already in our AI Act in place, and this blueprint, what we are now proposing, it will not impose new mandatory or legal requirements for providers of AI models, but it will be a guidance now, a guidance document clarifying and providing more transparency around staged release and vetting processes, so how to have access and who should have access. And it will allow us now to reinforce European leverage and make things easier for European players. And as we know that now the question of access is very highly topical in international fora, we think also that this blueprint can become really a common global reference on access to frontier AI models. And second, on Europe's sovereignty, here too, we are not starting from scratch, as we know. We already made significant investments now in developing our own AI compute infrastructure, in particular through the AI factories and also future gigafactories. But to build our own sovereign frontier AI capabilities, we need to mobilize massive additional private investments. And this is why the new strategic tech equality facility for Europe could be a game changer here. But at the same time, everything what we can really do to accelerate our savings and investments union, make more out of our single market, make it easier for our companies to scale up in Europe, of course, everything will be very crucial for our tech sovereignty. And when we are looking at our resilience, of course, coordination and response mechanism must also keep pace with the latest AI developments. And this is why now the revision of the Cybersecurity Act is so important, because it will now strengthen our ENISA and also equip the EU with the tools it needs to help secure of our supply chains. And this is also why the proposal for a single entry point for cybersecurity incident reporting in the digital omnibus matters so much. So I therefore count on both co-legislators to move these negotiations now forward swiftly and with the level of ambition that the security of our union requires.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask to take the floor Michal Wawrikewicz.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, artificial intelligence, without the slightest doubt, is becoming a core element of Europe's security architecture. The presentation of the action plan on cybersecurity and AI comes at a very decisive moment. Today, we need a pragmatic approach. Europe must reduce strategic risks in its critical infrastructure. The revised Cybersecurity Act should give us proper, stronger tools to de-risk mobile telecommunication networks from unsound third country suppliers. Building on the lessons of the 5G security toolbox, cybersecurity cannot depend on suppliers whose risk profile we cannot fully control. And second, dual nature of generative AI needs to be addressed. Large language models can be used to automate attacks or scale disinformation operation, and they can become targets themselves through model poisoning, data breaches, or manipulation of training data. Finally, we should not look at AI only as a threat. Properly governed, AI can become a powerful instrument for defense, improving code review and strengthening incident response. The task before us is therefore very clear. Europe must regulate risk, but also build capacity. We need a trusted infrastructure and secure AI system. Cybersecurity and AI are now inseparable. Our response must be equally integrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now Jens Geier for 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner, honourable members. Many colleagues have already said from this podium how significant the security risks are in cyberspace as we speak. I think it's become a day-to-day experience that criminals, all representatives of third countries who don't have good intentions when it comes to the security of the EU, attack our infrastructure. It's a very complex and tangible problem that we're seeing every single day. I'd like to give you an example. German offshore wind turbines have been subject to are managed from outside the EU. So if there's a problem, they have sensors, and then it's organised for a repair to be carried out. But in that third country, there's what's called a death switch. So they can switch off our wind turbines whenever they want. And I think one of the most important security features we need to have in future is to not have such a death switch. And European regulation should go in that direction.
Thank you. And now Virginia Joron, 1 minute and a half.
Thank you, Madam President. Vice President, today you are presenting the Commission's new action plan on cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. The European Union has theirs, China has theirs, AI companies, and we just have an action plan. When we look at the ban on using Mythos from Anthropic in the US. We just have this action plan: create European capacity, create European framework for structural access to AI capacities. One more EU platform to test AI models. Looking at these solutions to tackle AI and cybersecurity. But the paradox is, fine, we have these potential solutions, but we have the US Undersecretary who is opposed to sharing these technologies. So we have the EU having to buy from the US, but without semiconductors and chips and independence, the US can deconnect us whenever they want. But there is an alternative, a real European consortium using rare earths from Guyana, the semiconductor company from the Netherlands. But while you talk about sovereignty, you are simply submitting. Plans are fine, but action is better. Thank you.
Sonnier, please.
Gracias, Presidente, Comisaria.
President, Commissioner, AI is having an effect on all of us in our personal relations, our business, our daily lives, everything. Before, we got data, we compared information, we worked together. Now we just ask AI, and we don't know whether it's true or not. Could be a major serious problem, because if AI is manipulated or maliciously it's changed, then that could have a serious effect on our decisions, on our consciousness, on what we think. And that means that we need to have better security. Now we have bots that attack our systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what they are trying to do is get access to the most sensitive data. EU has to act, not just through regulation. We have to ensure we keep companies in Europe. We have to work with major companies, cybersecurity companies, those working in AI. That's the only way of us keeping ahead of those who want to manipulate our data and who want to damage us.
So the next speaker, Christophe Grudler.
Chers collègues,
Colleagues, let's trust our European AI companies. Let's start investing now the billions of euros that are required for us to develop our own AI models at an advanced level. President Trump's decision to restrict access to the highest performing American AI systems confirms what we, Liberals and Democrats, have been saying ever since he took power. A country which uses our dependency against us is not a reliable ally. So digital independence should be our priority, because that will define the future of Europe. I welcome what you stated, Commissioner Virkkunen, with regard to our cybersecurity and all of the dangers posed by AI, and we will lend you our full support as you adopt measures to strengthen our European independence as far as AI and cybersecurity are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Rainer van Lanschot, please.
Thank you. Colleagues, the Industrial Revolution was a miracle. We now live longer, work less, and live better today than kings did 300 years ago. But before we got here, we had child labor, colonial exploitation, and a climate catastrophe we're still living through. The next industrial revolution is already happening. AI could unlock energy efficiency gains, design new cures for diseases, help fight world hunger, or accelerate scientific discoveries. But what will we have to go through this time? Overheat our burning planet with ever bigger data centers? Destroy jobs faster than we can adapt? Or unleash a new era of cybercrime? There are risks and opportunities. This action plan on AI and cybersecurity is a good first step, but I urge national leaders to put it higher on the agenda, organize a European Council summit dedicated to AI, and unite around a plan to minimize risks and seize opportunities the European way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Isabella Serra Sanchez.
Gracias, presidente. Señorías.
Thank you very much, President. During the 1 minute I speak, Elon Musk's fortune will have gone up by 280 million. Similarly for Mr. Zuckerberg and the other oligarchs who are enriching themselves. We see scientific advances. Are they being put to the general advantage of the people? No. You are talking about more military spending to placate Donald Trump. And we are seeing more artificial intelligence, which is just enriching Trump's friends. This is the same week that Donald Trump said, and his children who are creating drones based on artificial intelligence are using privileged information. And he is imposing this on Europe. Europe is being submissive in the face of American imperialism. This is what the Commission is offering. More war, more submissiveness.
Would you accept the blue card? Colleague said no. So, no blue card. So, next speaker, Marcin Sypniewski.
Dziękuję bardzo, szanowni państwo.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, this debate on AI shows that one can be positive towards AI, but there are certain risks. And clearly the EU thinks that it needs to provide protection for us. We are losing the tech war at the moment, partly because we have too much regulation, we have too many rules, and innovation therefore tends to leave Brussels. Now, innovation, though, is partly dependent on freedom of action. So if this new plan means new audits, new certification, then actually who will win? It'll be the major tech firms. The small ones in the EU won't be able to defend themselves from attacks. And they'll leave. They'll go and they'll become clients of Chinese companies.
And now the floor goes to Monica Sorel.
Colleague Sorel, so would you accept blue card? The last moment we had Nicola Stefanuta. Vice President Nicola Stefanuta would like to ask. You don't want to take so. So please, colleague Sorel.
Colleagues, Madam Vice President, 2 years after the Draghi report, less than a third of the recommendations in the report have been followed up. Our infrastructure is essential, which means that Europe cannot ignore two other strategic points of leverage: talent and funding. We are training excellent cyber and AI engineers, but we're letting them leave to go and live in Silicon Valley, weakening our capacity to innovate. It's time to build a narrative about a Europe that is proud of its talent and is able to keep them and to use their value. So that is possible through better pay. We should also reduce complex rules and regulations because too much compliance budgets are required for this. 4 in 10 startups are planning to leave the European Union for this reason. Finally, Europe needs to scale up on funding. Arthur Munch, the founder of Mistral, has 3 billion available. His smallest competitor in the US has 30 billion. So, colleagues, it is time for us to build a true European Nasdaq. We can wait no longer. Thank you.
Yes, what's Paulo?
Thank you. And now, Mr. Paolo Cugno, 1 minute and a half, please.
President, Commissioner, colleagues, what we're seeing is scenarios where, for example, doctors prepare for operations, suddenly their machinery doesn't work. Why? A cyber attack. Such a cyber attack can be launched in just a few minutes but the same kind of machinery can actually detect threats and ensure they don't happen. This is the new reality of cybersecurity. AI doesn't just drive innovation now. It is also a driver for defense, and unfortunately it's a driver for those that want to exploit our vulnerabilities. Europe should be leading this transformation, but it will only do that if it harnesses competitiveness with innovation. So the action plan presented today is very important. We need to invest in a European cybersecurity sector where we can harness innovation, talent, cooperation with member states. We should be supporting SMEs. We should be reinforcing the sharing of information about threats and ensure that security goes hand in hand right from the beginning of the design of technology. When we talk about cybersecurity, we're not just talking about computers and networks. We're talking about protecting schools, hospitals, companies, essential public services that protect our citizens. Thank you.
You accept a blue card for colleague Mendes, please.
Thank you very much, President. Mr. Cunha, imagine thousands of students awaiting their exam results because the computers have gone down in the Ministry of Education in Portugal. We don't need to imagine, that's happening. So isn't it worth talking about innovation, but at the same time, the responsibility of public authorities to respect citizens, to answer questions clearly? So what is the responsibility of the state in Portugal who is leaving pupils with their futures hijacked as a result of their lack of investment? Well, I must admit that this is not an issue that I'm familiar with, but I think that the circumstances are different, and this doesn't have to do with what I was talking about. What we're talking about now is a revolution, and we need to adapt to that. We have to stop being passive. We need to ensure that we don't refuse change. We don't refuse to move forward, because otherwise the consequences for everyone, citizens, pupils, etc., will be...
Regular floor for 1 minute, please, colleague Mendes.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, we had the opportunity recently to have a discussion, and I do welcome the action plan, although I did make the point I did, but I do welcome the action plan because I think it will help us to see how the member states should react to AI and ensure more cybersecurity. Now, I wasn't being utopian when I made the point I did. We're talking about critical systems in Portugal now, and if you have critical failures of systems, which means that the future of young people is at risk, then we can't provide equal opportunities for all. And Commissioner, my point is that the action plan has to ensure that the member states act together with more coordination. That's what I'd call for. More coordination, more responsibility, and more possibilities of ensuring that AI actually benefits our citizens, our young people, and our society as a whole.
Andres Laszlo, 1.5 minutes, please.
The European Commission's response to the rise of AI and related cybersecurity challenges is disappointing, to say the least, including the new action plan. When the US learned that Germany was building a nuclear weapon, it understood that it must do the same. In fact, it understood that it must win the race. When the first atomic bomb was built, others were rushing to catch up. Those who belong to the nuclear club set the rules. Today, the same applies to AI. Europe cannot set the rules if it has no serious sovereign AI capability. You talk about a massive private investment in order to boost frontier sovereign AI capability, but you are late. And you cannot fix this by focusing on AI alone. We need to increase the training of software engineers, incentivize automation in industry, develop and build chips, guarantee cheap energy. Otherwise, private investors won't invest in AI in Europe. Public procurement is therefore absolutely necessary. We talk about European digital sovereignty again and again in this House, and then nothing meaningful happens. The European Commission published yet another action plan that is news today and will be forgotten tomorrow. Why? Because the US and China, who really are serious about the AI race, will publish a new model and will be starting this debate all over again. We need to set benchmarks and deadlines on how the EU will catch up on AI.
Colleague, you have a blue card from Vice President Stefanuta. 56. Would you accept it? Yeah? Yeah, please.
Köszönöm szépen. So I will ask you something. You mentioned software engineers. Did you know that right now the biggest victim in the industry of including more AI, it's exactly software engineers? Did you know that companies do not hire people fresh off the benches of universities anymore because they use more AI to cut costs? Do you think or not that we have a social problem, or that we might have an even bigger social problem because lots of ICT graduates are not entering the market because everything is used with AI? And what do we do with the massive unemployment generated by that?
Thank you very much.
Do you also see a danger
No,
here?
question is clear, so thank you very much.
You've raised several issues which deal with generally how we're going to apply AI. And of course, it touches on software engineers as well. That's why we should be, and that's why I argued in favor of public procurement. We need to be, because private investment is not happening in AI or not sufficiently in Europe, that's why we should have massive public procurement. To suck up also the engineers, we should incentivize software engineers and then provide them with the job of doing so. In a certain way, we should be treating AI and the development of AI, just like I said in my example, like a nuclear weapon, like a matter of national security and of strategic importance. And when it's a matter, and we talk about a sector of strategic importance and defense, like in cybersecurity, we need to have public procurement push.
Thank you. So next speaker, Francesco Torselli.
Grazie.
Thank you, President. In the debate that's taken place over the last months about the role that Europe should play in the development of AI, there are those that want Europe to follow the US and China. There are others who want Europe to actually benefit from its own forms of excellence through AI. And we shouldn't underestimate how important cybersecurity is. If we want to protect our data, if we want to protect our infrastructure, if we want to protect our companies, then AI is and can be a fundamental ally. When it comes to cybersecurity, and you'll know this better than me, Europe today should not be seen as being backwards. It's actually a leader in this sector, and thanks to AI, we can set a goal for ourselves, become the most secure digital area in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Morten Lukkegaard.
Kommissær, kære kolleger.
Commissioner, dear colleagues, artificial intelligence has changed cybersecurity. We have stronger defense, but our opponents have stronger weapons. So we have to act, and we have to act now. Our biggest challenge is not necessarily more regulation, as some colleagues have said. European companies must have access to the best tools possible. With the Commission's action plan, I think we go one step in the right direction, but it is important that we look for European solutions. It's not just about security, it's about competitiveness as well. We need to strengthen security, not just talk. We need to have real investment in European security and artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Now, Sergei Lagodinsky.
Madam Vice President, thank you so much for this action plan. And yet, OpenAI and Anthropic raise $122 and $30 billion. Mistral raises 3 billion euros. OpenAI offers the American government a 5% stake. In Europe, we have no clear timeline for gigafactories. Washington cuts off access to Fable and Mythos, and the Commission to this day has no access to these models. This town and this House are obsessed about deregulation. Regulation is not the problem. It is about equity. It is about funding. We have now AI Omnibus. Did it change anything on the ground? No. This Commission should convene a meeting between businesses, big businesses of Europe, and demand that they put on the table trillions of euros in order to invest into our future. Because if they don't, we will not have future at all.
Colleague Lagodinsky, you have 2 blue cards, so would you accept both of them? First would be Bart Groothuis and then Lucas Sieper. Please, but start with Bart Groothuis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lagodinsky. You say that regulations in Europe are not a problem for the development of frontier AI models. I beg to differ. The copyright directive is very different from the US and China. But let me just zoom in on one aspect of the GDPR. I'd like to have your opinion on it as an expert. If you make neural networks, you do a hypothesis. In the style of Sergei Lagodinsky, I want to set up a reasoning, which is hard because I'm not you. But AI can do that. In the GDPR, using your data is not allowed to train a model. How are you willing to solve this? From the 3,000 AI large language models in the world, only 30 are European, 0 are compliant, and we will have 0 new AI large language models if we do not
it's very
deregulate.
interesting, but we cannot keep an academic debate. Please.
It's the core of the debate, sir.
I would like to address one specific issue that you mentioned, the copyright direction. First of all, in the AI Act, we invested a lot in order to make it possible for training purposes to use our copyright. And we have a data mining exemption. We have an opportunity to use that and to use data for AI training. So I don't think that this is the biggest challenge for frontier models to be based here, nor do I think that GDPR, with all the exceptions that we have, has an opportunity to stop the development. What we don't have and what we're lacking is equity and investment.
Thank you. It will be second round, so you see. So, colleague Groothuis, you have a floor.
Sorry, if I understand you well, you think there's no, that those the copyright directive or the GDPR are no hurdles to training large language models. But what if we set up a hearing with AI experts, you and me together, very soon on the shortest possible notice, and you find me one AI expert that confirms your lecture on this, we agree. But I'm afraid I've spoken to dozens and they all disagree. It's impossible. So we have to deregulate, Mr. Lagodinsky, and I'm hoping for your help.
It's not my first year and it's not my first month. I hope the mic is on. And I've been talking to experts. I've been talking to businesses for years, since I was one of the negotiators for AI Act and Data Act and many other things. And if you talk to people from Mistral, if you talk to people from Aleph Alpha, when Aleph Alpha was still alive, we were consulting with them, and they're all saying, this is not our biggest problem. The biggest problem is access to money. The biggest problem is compute that we're trying to make here, the infrastructure. That is something we should be focusing on instead of the tech whining that this House has been spending and wasting their time with.
Thank you. Now you have time for a second blue card. Lucas Zipper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to be real quick, am I also allowed to make a reference to the reply he gave to the first blue card, or am I only allowed to make a reference to the original speech? whatever, like lovely. Okay, I will do both.
Original.
Okay, Mr. Laguna.
I think it's up to you.
Thank you very much for accepting the blue card. I listened to your speech, and I mean, in the crescendo of your speech, you were talking very much on how important all of this is. And then in the fortissimo, you talked about the fact that we should sit down with businesses and demand that they invest money. And then you said in your reply to my colleague, by the way, this was not planned, you said...
Thank you.
5 months.
Thank you.
How to force them? What do we do? What do we do if they say no?
Not sure. We don't want to show, but we would like to have a substance of the debate. Yeah, please, colleague.
I'm sure they will not say no because they realize better than us that their future, both in terms of cybersecurity, but also of security and also access to the frontier models, will be in our own capabilities. And this is precisely what the Executive Vice President has said. We need, our cybersecurity is our sovereignty, and our sovereignty is our capabilities. These companies, from Siemens to whatever French colleagues are, they depend on our ability to innovate here, and this ability depends on compute, and compute depends on equity, their equity, and it is in their interest for us to survive economically and in terms of innovation.
Thank you very much. So now we continue debate with Fernando Barrena Arsa for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. It's true that we are facing a security crisis. Over the past year alone, we have seen an unprecedented number of software vulnerabilities discovered and exploited by malicious compliance actors. Too often, policymakers repeat the dramatic claims made by large AI companies without subjecting them to independent scrutiny. We should keep in mind that these companies have commercial interests. That's why the European Union must base its cybersecurity policy on independent evidence, rigorous analysis, and our own strategic interest, not on narratives promoted by those who stand to benefit from them. As we discuss on cybersecurity, I will grasp the opportunity to expose the case of Stelios Kouloglou, a former MEP from the last term that was spied with Pegasus when he was a member of the Pegasus investigating committee in this House in the past term, as I said. If we let this abuse take place with no consequences, the message will be that any means can be deployed against the democratic mandate of this Parliament, and that is completely unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Alvis Perez.
Muchas gracias, President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, Ms. Vikunen, with all due respect, how can you present a cybersecurity plan today when you've been hacked twice in 3 months? I heard about a huge amount of data being stolen from you just a few months ago. And suddenly we realised in this chamber where all of that European sovereignty was being stored. Amazon, in Seattle, on a server. That is where our technological sovereignty was. 70% of all the European cloud belongs to 3 American companies. So, we're glad that we're here because we've stopped people using TikTok on the Wi-Fi. I mean, it's quite shocking, really, isn't it? So we hear people correcting us. We've got all these laws about the digital things and reforms. But in China, they're building chips. In the US, they have technology giants. And what are we doing? Forms and certificates.
Next speaker, Angelika Winzig.
Danke, Herr Präsident, Frau Kommissarin.
Thank you, President, Madam Commissioner. Artificial intelligence is going to be decisive for cybersecurity and also our competitiveness, our sovereignty and our resilience. It is important that we have this action plan. We do not want to be dependent when it comes to these frontier AI models on third countries. When it comes to critical AI models where we can have access restricted, it's not just a technological problem, it is a security problem for Europe as well. So I have some questions. You talked about this evaluation by 2027. Is this not going to be too late? How can we ensure that Europe has the necessary capacities to ensure security, but also have sufficient innovation? And when it comes to dependence on outside EU artificial intelligence models, is a blueprint enough? Do we not need our own AI model and our own capacities? Now, SMEs are very important to me, but they don't have large budgets or access to large data centers necessarily. So how can we ensure that SMEs do have access to reliable AI cybersecurity solutions? Digital sovereignty is important, but we need to be speedy and we need to retain our sovereignty too. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Europe has shown that it knows how to regulate tech. Now it has to show that it knows how to build it. If in the 20th century sovereignty was built through tanks, in the 21st, it's algorithms, semiconductors, data. A few days ago, Palantir, provider of defense and tech, said that politicizing access is wrong. Having said that, AI that can protect our critical infrastructure, hospitals, parliaments, banks, isn't just a technical issue, it's a highly political issue, it's an existential issue. But while we're still discussing technological sovereignty of Europe, many of our governments are using public money to finance critical technology that's developed outside the EU. You don't build a house to give the keys to someone else, and Europe can't do that with its digital security. So we welcome the action plan for cybersecurity and AI from the Commission, but we need much more resources. We need to spend in Europe. We need to support European companies and factories to build up our own digital sovereignty. Thank you.
Georg Mayer, Kungan, posotre minute.
Georg Mayer, a minute and a half.
Thank you, Mr. President, honourable members. Well, last time we were in Strasbourg, we talked about electrification, an initiative from the Commission, which had similar measures to what we're discussing now. And we said yes to protection, but not to more bureaucracy. And AI, yes, is making cyber attacks smarter and more dangerous, but this action plan from the Commission, once again, is creating a monster of compliance responsibilities and forms and bureaucracy, and this is just not doable for small companies. We've got more and more administration, more and more centralization, and we need to be careful. Cybersecurity shouldn't be a backdoor to the control of people's opinions. We need real security. We need to say no to all the paperwork and to secure greater freedoms for citizens.
Richard Terzio.
Thank you, President. Dear colleagues, a Ukrainian drone recently came close to the port of Constanta in Romania, and we couldn't defend ourselves from that. So a cheap drone came close to destroying our economy, and this is the reality in Europe. It's not a question of lack of regulation. Cybersecurity, you build it through your own technology, your own investments. We can't talk about digital sovereignty if, in fact, algorithms are controlled outside Europe. Europe needs to build its own capacity, and Romania, which has one of the most high-performing digital infrastructures in Europe, has to contribute that. But European funds go mainly to the west of the EU. They need to go to the east too. And also, fighting cybercrime can't actually lead to general surveillance of citizens either.
Liebe Kollegen von Großbanken über
Dear colleagues, when it comes to banks or other infrastructure, we are very much dependent on artificial intelligence. So cybersecurity and AI action plan is very important. We need to see more investment and new technologies being developed faster. The US and China are moving very fast, and Europe is hanging behind. We need to see the same technological springs forward. So we need less bureaucracy, we need more capital, we need cheaper energy in the single market. For digital sovereignty, we need to have things that are not just written on paper. We need real innovation. We need to let the world know that Europe can really change and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Jutta Paulus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner, dear colleagues, I have a bit of a quiz question. How many resources are used to generate AI video for 1 minute? 200 kilowatt hours. That is 2 days of use of electricity by an average family. We're talking about clean, potable drinking water, which is no longer then available to citizens or farmers. Technology companies don't just want our data, they want our water too. So yes, the EU does need to become more independent in the digital sector, but that cannot mean that scarce resources become even more scarce when actually these innovations aren't creating jobs, they're getting rid of jobs. So we need to learn from the errors of others. Let's look at what's happening in the US with data centers and concerns that are happening about air pollution and water use. We need to learn from that. So we need data centers, yes, with clear rules, efficient technology, sustainable, renewable energy, transparency, participation of local people. That will really be something.
Thank you. Now, the floor goes to Per Clausen. 1 minute, please.
Jeg synes, det ærgerligt, at kommissionen ikke fremlægger sine forslag.
I think it is frustrating to see the Commission present this proposal before we've had a chance to have a proper discussion or input. It makes me quite angry. Now, there are some positive things here with regards to open source and open source strategy. But if we want to take our security seriously, we need to close up loopholes like WebEx or Teams. We need to use European open source programs that ensure that our data is secure and ensure our sovereignty. When it comes to the Cloud and AI Act, it could just be called the Continued American Dependence Act. It just means more dependence of the EU, and that's a real problem.
Commissioner, colleagues, the action plan on cybersecurity and AI is a welcome step in supporting our member states and companies to navigate the digital transition. But regulation alone will not solve our innovation deficit or mitigate the threats we face. In 2024, the United States produced 40 notable AI models, China produced 15, while Europe produced only 3. We are heavily dependent on foreign cloud and other digital technologies. To bridge this gap, we need aggressive public-private investment in European computing capacity and critical digital infrastructure, cloud computing, data centers, and advanced connectivity. We have built a robust regulatory foundation with AI Act, Digital Markets Act, Cyber Resilience Act, etc. Now we must ensure these frameworks are enforced effectively and our own tech gets adequate financing. We should become creators, not only regulators. Cybersecurity and AI are our security issue too. Last year, Europe recorded thousands of major cyber incidents, largely traced back to actors in Russia and China. In my home country, Lithuania, we recorded nearly 4,000 incidents, averaging 10 attacks every single day. Advanced AI is now making these threats exponentially more dangerous. So let me stress this. Europe's security and competitiveness are only as strong as the technology we control. Thank you.
And next speaker, thank you. Next speaker is Christian Beginning.
Commissioner, we cannot protect our hospitals, energy grids, public administrations and elections with tools that can disappear because of a decision taken in Washington or somewhere else outside the EU. Of course, we should cooperate with the United States, with companies and with other partners. But cooperation should never mean dependency. I hope the action plan could answer 3 concrete questions. First, what does guarantee that the case with ENISA and Anthropic will not happen again? Second, what is the timeline for building real European AI capability for cybersecurity, including for EU and national authorities, municipalities and companies? And third, where is the money? Some member states speak every day about security, defense and geopolitical threats, but then want to limit the EU budget when Europe needs the capacity to act. That is undermining our security while pretending to be sovereign. Digital sovereignty means public investment, democratic control and accountability, not simply subsidizing a few private companies to build data centers in Europe. We need an action plan with deadlines, funding and enforcement, not another strategy that sounds strong in Brussels, but leaves Europe vulnerable when the next crisis comes.
Thank you. Next speaker, Melanie Didier, for 1.5 minutes, please.
Colleagues, every technological innovation, every bit of progress made by human beings has always led to risks and new vulnerabilities, and AI is no exception. We have centuries of experience on technological risk, and as such, we should ensure AI doesn't become something that we are dependent on. Europe is the cradle of the Industrial Revolution, and it was at the cutting edge of discoveries that built the modern world. But we've lost the digital race. We've been overtaken by the new giants of the US and China, and we won't make up that gap unless we find the European spirit that made us a driving force. Now, we all know the amazing capacity of the European Commission to innovate in just one area, generating more and more rules which crush this European creative spirit. So yes, we need to be prudent, but not at any price. There's no point in putting binding rules on companies which will never manage to develop anything. There's no point talking about resilience if we're always dependent on third countries for new technology. So we will keep an eye to ensure that the Commission doesn't use cybersecurity to justify a lack of action. Plus, this would crush our entrepreneurs and crush innovations, even in cybersecurity, by doing that.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Helmut Brandstetter.
Mr. President, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, always in those difficult times, I talk about good news. So it's good news there's an action plan for cybersecurity and the AI. The good news, we had a very interesting debate here. And the next good news, I think most of us have understood, it's not true that always the Americans invent and we have regulation. But yes, we have too much regulation, so please, less regulation. That's important. And the next thing we really have to do, and you said it also, Commissioner, this capital investment union. We have understood it, everybody. So please tell us, are there any states who don't want it? So let's blame them, and then let's talk about here why we still don't have that. That's necessary especially for AI and for investments. And one more thing, of course, we rely too long on the American states, on the United States. But finally, in this football soccer VM, now we understood they don't play fair, so we can't trust them. And we can't trust the Chinese. That's also true. But one more thing, this technology independence is basic for our democracy. People have to understand it. And also, we only have a common European policy together. It has nothing to do with centralism. It has to do that only as Europe together we can make it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, Damian Boselager.
Vice President, colleagues, Europe is becoming a colony of the US and China. That is the clear message of the Europe 2031 simulation and similar ones looking into our immediate future. They claim that all companies and governments will have to use frontier models to stay competitive and safe, that all labor is replaceable by the mix of AI and robotics, meaning that a significant part of our people will lose their jobs, that all the savings from the firings will be extradited to the US-based models and Chinese robotics, and that the US government will at some point soon redistribute AI gains to the workers that have been laid off in the US, and that Europe, without access to this redistribution, will fall into bankruptcy, poverty and despair before becoming fully bought by the US or China. So my question to you is, Commissioner, first, on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely do you think that this scenario is true? Second, how come we only spent 50 billion euros of the ECF of our 7-year industrial program on AI? And third, what will we do to develop frontier models, or at least very good copycats here in Europe? Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Before I will give the next speaker floor, I would like to say that we were closing KGI procedure, otherwise we will be out of time completely. And now we have Regina Doherty.
Thank you, Chair. I'll talk fast. Commissioner, for the first time, human activity has become the minority on the internet. More than half all of web traffic is now generated by bots, with almost 40% of that traffic coming from malicious bots designed to scam, steal, manipulate or attack. Maybe the dead internet theory is no longer so far-fetched. AI-powered bots are mimicking human behaviour, spreading disinformation, stealing personal data, carrying out sophisticated cyber attacks and generating explicit sexual material, which is endangering our children. Because behind every fake account and every AI-powered scam, we have to remember there's a real person, a real victim being exploited. We also must stop AI being weaponised against our systems, and that includes Mythos's AI systems, which now risks becoming a global security threat. We also must accept that if Europe doesn't develop its own AI capabilities, we're always going to be at the mercy of other countries that can shut off our access to AI software in a moment, as we have recently seen. But we must remember that strong cybersecurity systems do not mean centralising bureaucracy, and it's not about who gets to use what software and when in a supply chain framework. We must detect and remove malicious bots. We require clear labelling of AI-generated content, and we have to hold platforms when automated networks are allowed to operate unchecked, or we can't, apologies, because if people can no longer tell what's real online, the internet becomes the perfect place and the perfect weapon for criminals, hostile states and scammers, and Europe can't afford to let that happen.
Paldies. Tagad vārds Elena Sancho.
Thank you. The floor goes to Elena Sancho Murillo for 1 minute.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, President. Madam Vice President, thank you for presenting this action plan at a time when events around the Mythos model are once again revealing how dependent the EU is with regard to access to critical AI systems. We're seeing that it's not just Anthropic who decides whether or not to grant access to advanced models. I wonder why the Commission isn't already asking the White House directly what political strategy should be followed. I mean, that'd be pretty crazy, wouldn't it? Anyway, what about the G7 discussions on AI? What did the EU contribute in terms of developing common standards on AI and new frontier models? There are currently no international standards. How does that affect implementation of the AI Act, which has already had its entry into application delayed? So governance needs to be developed with international collaboration, all that while prioritising our access and independent assessment. Thank you.
Fabienne Keller.
Monsieur le Président, cher
President Robert Zila, Commissioner, the recent blockage of access to the most advanced AI models were an alarm signal for Europe. In just a few hours, we realized to what extent our companies, our security, our administrations depend on technology we don't control. The action plan on cybersecurity, which we're fascinated to get, but I couldn't read it using AI, so I don't know the details, has to provide a sovereignty strategy, investing in EU capacity, investing in supporting trusted models, ensuring access to advanced models, and reinforcing our infrastructure. That means that we have to answer an essential question: how the EU can actually address the risks of EU's access to essential technology being cut off overnight. We have to ensure that we protect our citizens' data of their fundamental rights, and we have to ensure that those rights don't depend on decisions taken outside of the EU.
Herr Präsident, Frau Kommissarin,
President, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about artificial intelligence here today, but really we're talking about Europe's future, but the future is being played out elsewhere. We have only about 5% of the world's AI capacity. The US have around 75%. They are investing hundreds of billions into data centers, chips, energy. What are we doing? We're checking, we're regulating, we're hesitating. Artificial intelligence doesn't need just good intentions. It needs things to move forward faster. It needs energy. It needs infrastructure. We need to move forward faster. The AI Act suffers from this European illness. What we really need is Europe to become sovereign. We need to really break down the interests that we've seen in legislation over the years and really focus on moving forward and investment.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. The kill switch is not hypothetical anymore. Someone pressed it. In June, through a signature, Donald Trump stopped access to the most advanced AI model in the world for ENISA, which had just got access. So we have to look at how we look at cybersecurity and AI. But now, today, others decide whether we can use this. That's dependency. So excellent, cybersecurity, very good. But if we don't have funds, etc., it's just a kind of wish list. We need money for AI, which will become more and more, I think, power. We need also a European cloud rather than being dependent on others. And those that think we should buy access to American models and that we should loosen our laws, maybe we should rethink. We need a European approach. We need to determine and defend our own interests through doing this. Thank you.
Eroglu, please.
Ja, sehr geehrter Herr Vorsitzender.
Mr. President, Madam Commissioner, I'd like to extend my thanks to you for providing us with this action plan on cybersecurity and AI, because cybersecurity is being significantly changed by AI. So security authorities have got quite some work to do, as do we when it comes to public spaces. So public space needs to be shaped in a way that the job can be done. Commissioner, you haven't said anything about quantum computing. What is the EU strategy on quantum computers? How do we protect our infrastructure when it comes to quantum computing? You also didn't say anything about the fact that alongside the criminals involved, there are also third countries using hackers specifically to attack the EU and its member states. The federal government of Germany have 800 hack attacks on their systems per day. So we need not just to respond, we need to be proactive. We need to attack hackers from third countries back. So what are we going to do about that?
So I don't see in the hemicycle the colleague De Meo. That's why I will give the floor to Nicola Zingaretti.
Commissioner, the action plan the Commission has just presented is definitely an important step towards European technological sovereignty. Autonomy isn't autarky. and isn't protectionism either. We can't keep depending on third countries, and the restrictions we've seen to access to frontier models does show how closely linked security is to our sovereignty and can't be seen as protectionism. We need to build up our own capacity. That requires clear political choices, not only the kind of provisions that we're finally adopting, but also public and private investment, which will, in fact, help us catch up with the gap with the US and China. So the choice of governments on a provisional budget for Europe so far have been wrong. They've been too timid. They've been wrong. It contradicts the right choices that we're making in other fields. Without specific resources, we won't be able...
Sophia Kircher.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident, geschätzte Frau.
Thank you very much, President, Madam Commissioner, dear colleagues. Artificial intelligence and quantum computing will make the difference to whether we're economically successful or not. Cyber security will decide whether or not we are capable of acting. That is why we have to put in place the foundations for the future. It is positive that the Commission has now presented this action plan. Now it's about the implementation. What is clear is that our SMEs more digital certainty, more help, and not more bureaucracy. Europe has to be digitally sovereign and competitiveness with European cloud solutions, its own digital infrastructure, and excellence when it comes to quantum computing. Whoever develops these key technologies will ensure prosperity, jobs, and will set the rules for the future. When it comes to cyber competences, we need to teach those more in schools. Humans are the most important firewall we can have. Dear colleagues, the message is very clear. Digital sovereignty and safety are not a technological issue. They are the basis of our competitiveness, our security, and our freedom. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Maria Guzenina.
Dear Chair, dear Commissioner, in Europe, in cybersecurity, our biggest vulnerability is believing that we are protected and that we have time, which we are not and which we do not have. As the rapporteur for IMCO on the Cybersecurity Act 2, I welcome the action plan Commissioner Virkkunen has presented today. European society needs to be defended from all angles. Our cyber ecosystem needs to be protected urgently, but my worry is that the funding is not adequate. Experts speak already of Q-Day, the day quantum computing becomes powerful enough to break the encryption that protects our banking system, critical infrastructure, weapon systems, communications, and data. Hostile actors are already collecting our encrypted data, hoping to encrypt it as soon as possible. So cybersecurity is not a matter just of national security.
Thank you, colleague.
It's about economic resilience and finally democracy.
Thank you very much. So next speaker, Sophie Eriksson.
Thank you, Chair. Things are going so fast. A lot of people feel like we are losing control. And billionaire oligarchs act like there is no choice. But to me, they sound like, we are Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. This endless race, catch up, keep up, don't fall behind. Okay, but the only question worth asking cannot be how fast we can plug ourselves into someone else's system. Our hospitals, our power grids, our most sensitive government data are dependent on systems we do not own and do not control. The line must be drawn here. We welcome the action plan. We need our own public, accountable, democratically controlled capability, even if it's harder. Because unlike the humanoids assimilated by the Borg, we still get to choose our way forward with technology, with democracy, with humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, José Cepeda.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner Virkkunen. I agree with the plan and its three objectives to promote, to push forward, to foster, but the threat is already occurring in real time. So let me just say that I think it is very important to apply Annex 2. We need to ensure that ENISA is sanctioning and fining when necessary. They have a real deficit, 340 million over 7 years, and we see that quantum computing is almost here in the next 18 months. It's going to be a real threat. Apart from critical infrastructure, we also need to talk about people. The example given by the Spanish government, Carl Lopez, my dear friend, a coalition with France is moving in the right direction. It is important to protect our young people from artificial intelligence. That's also an important challenge for the future. Thank you.
Salvatore De Meo, please.
Grazie.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. The action plan on cybersecurity and AI does represent a strategic choice to reinforce security and resilience of the EU. Protecting networks and infrastructure and our data means protecting our companies and ensuring continuity of essential services for citizens. AI is an essential driver for innovation, strategic autonomy, or security. At the same time, if used by hostile actors, it can become a weapon that will undermine our systems, our economies, even our democracies. Therefore, Europe needs to govern this process rather than wait to see what happens. As was also recalled in the Pope's encyclicus, technological progress is valuable and worthwhile when it benefits human beings and their dignity. This, therefore, needs to be in the hands of man and shouldn't be used as an excuse for us to absolve ourselves of responsibility. That's how we can make ourselves freer and build a better future.
Commissioner, Executive Vice President Virkkunen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members. Thank you for your interventions and very valuable comments. And I think it's important to underline that really this action plan is not the end of our discussion, because this is now the really beginning of European effort to ensure that AI becomes a strategic asset for our security, not a systematic vulnerability. And this is the European way for AI and cybersecurity, built on trust, transparency and safety. And these are the conditions for ensuring that the most advanced AI models can be deployed in Europe safely, used for cybersecurity responsibly, and also turned into instruments of our security rather than weapons against our societies. Many of you were underlining very much the importance of tech sovereignty, and it's a crucial pillar on our action plan, really to scale and boost our own capabilities in this area. But as you said also, and I underlined, massive investments are really needed now and urgently to this area. And also, second priority in our action plan, and important pillar is, of course, to prepare our cybersecurity environment and also be able to fix the vulnerabilities fast. And here we will work very closely with our industries and member states. And then third pillar is about evaluating, testing, and having access to these capable models. And there we are also working with the blueprint. So we will need to move quickly. And it's important to underline that now the key actions, we have 9 key actions we have identified here, and 7 of them we will implement now already during the autumn. And we will work very closely with our member states, with this House, with our industry, with the open source community, and with our international partners, of course, because this is a challenge Europe cannot afford to face alone or too late.
Thank you very much, Executive Vice President. So, colleagues, we have a catch-the-eye procedure. I will give a floor for those who will be here at present in hemicycle or most of the time of the debate. So the first would be Sunčana Glavak.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Digital sovereignty is not a question of is a question of resilience. The goal is not to replace one dependence by the other, but other things. So I welcome the action plan because this is a new factor for European security. Over 80% of phishing companies use elements of generative AI, and cyber threats are developing faster than our defense systems. There are key questions to answer. Shall we invest enough? Do we have experts for coordination and protection of critical infrastructure? And are we ready for transition for post-quantum cryptography before the quantum computers endanger the current systems of encryption? And are we doing enough to protect our children and our basic data?
Yeah.
OpenIA, Mythos, Anthropos, inteligencia artificial de frontera, ¿por qué se revuelven contra el...
So why are cutting-edge AI companies turning against institutions like the Commission? Because they're scared, because they need to stand out, and what they most fear is being hit in terms of transparency, accountability, undermining fundamental rights. So we need to make it clear that we're not doing this out of panic at ineluctable technological progress, but rather we see there as being a fundamental rights issue at stake here for humanity. And we need to look at the nature of the impact that this could have on jobs, tomorrow's jobs, and the day after tomorrow's jobs. And should the justice system be using an algorithm to deliver justice, then I think that's very different to the European way.
Speaker Sebastian Tinkinen.
Arvoisa puhemies.
President, let me mention a few facts concerning AI. In Finland, the share of companies using AI has risen to almost 38%. That's almost double compared to the EU average. But what is hindering the AI development in Europe? The answer is in the numbers. At EU level, even 55% of large companies are using AI. But then comes the but. At EU level, only 30% of mid-sized companies and only 17% of small companies is using AI. To follow the EU's AI regulations, you need large resources, and smaller companies don't have these. Europe's role in the international stage in the future depends on how we utilize the new technology, and that role will start to form once we stop being the superpower of regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lukas Ziepel.
Hey, Mistral, what do you think about the action plan on cybersecurity and AI? 1 second, please. The European Commission's action plan on cybersecurity and AI unveiled today tackles AI's dual role, both a cyber threat and a defense tool. By Q4 2026, it will deliver a European blueprint for structured access to advanced AI models, a secure testing platform with ENISA, practical guidelines for AI-based threat protection, and an EU grant challenge for homegrown solutions. Strengths: proactive, holistic, collaborative. Risks: uncertain access to US frontier models, ENISA's capacity to execute. With the AI Act cybersecurity rules starting 2nd of August, this plan is Europe's practical playbook. Verdict: bold and necessary, execution speed will decide if Europe can lead on safe AI cybersecurity. Well, now, of course, everything in that is true except for the fact that this was pre-prepared because European AI is way too slow to deliver this result within 10 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Petras Gražulis.
Gerbimieji, vis tik turite pripažinti.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to accept that the European Union is legislating while the US and China are investing. We are not in a position to invest. We're not producing computers. We're not producing mobile phones. We're not producing software. Yet we're very good at regulating. Today I'm thinking of Putin. He's banning TikTok, and we are trying to regulate TikTok as well. Putin is targeting TikTok and Telegram, and we're talking about TikTok, artificial intelligence. What's the difference between us and Russia? There doesn't seem to be any. We're talking about about democracy and democratic regulation, and there we have autocracy. Today we're trying to ban certain aspects of this in Europe when Putin's already done it. So what's the difference between the European Union and Putin?
Speaker Andrei Dostal.
Thank you, Chairman. Dear Commissioner, in the ASEAN delegation of European Parliament, we discussed the issue of cyber scamming in Myanmar. There are non-state actors, mafias, who run basically slave factories on cyber scam, targeting people all around the world, including in Europe. So I spoke to diplomats from the region and received very positive replies from China, Cambodia and Myanmar itself, who has now a stable government, and they are genuinely willing to work on this issue with us. But the Commission told us we will not cooperate, we will not even speak to Myanmar because they are not democratically elected government. So I ask you, is it better to do virtue signaling and let grandmas in Europe get scammed? Or is it better to work together on resolving this important problem? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Michal Sherba. And we are closing KHI procedure. You are the last, yeah.
Szanowny Panie
Chair, the AI, artificial intelligence, is a tool that can strengthen cybersecurity on the one hand, but on the other hand, it is also a source of new challenges. What needs to be underlined is the necessity for the exchange of information, for collaboration and coordination of actions. Mr. Chairman, today we can say together that we've done our part. We have the position of the European Parliament on this very important regulation on military mobility. And next week, together, we will launch interinstitutional negotiations. But what makes me especially happy, and this is something that I would like to share with you, is that we have managed to incorporate this component, namely the system's security and the security of connection. This has all been taken on board in this regulation. This is a good basis for common actions. Thank you.
Colleagues, we are closing KHI procedure and we are closing also debate on this point in agenda. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It is my honor to chair the next point. Următorul punct de pe ordinea de zi este raportul domnului Galler.
The next point on the agenda is Mr. Galler's report on the Commission 2025 report on Ukraine. I would like to remind the speakers that given the testing of the plenary, it is important to strictly keep within the speaking time.
Very